Time once again for the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. With you as always, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com. Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. A lot to cover as the Kansas City Chiefs are the number one seed in the AFC. Of the last two games, put the Chiefs back on top of the league as the best team in the NFL. We'll discuss it. Is the offense fix? Can Xavier Worthy be the go-to guy for this team all the way through the postseason? Should Joe Thuney simply be the starting left tackle for this team, at least for the 2024 season? Is the run game now becoming a problem? How impressed were you with the defensive effort? No Chris Jones, no problem, at least against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Third straight game with multiple takeaways. Is this something that they can now hang their hat on? Travis Kelce setting records. We're discussing it all right now on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is the sports columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by David Starnes Allstate Insurance, covering all the important things in your world: home, business, life, and even the fun stuff as well. Motorcycle, boat, ATV, you name it. Get with Dave and he'll have you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call, visit them online, or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave. He'll give you peace of mind today for the things in your life most important to you. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Curtis, we do appreciate it. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast running here on a holiday session. Everything all screwed up. Everybody running in different directions. You see Sam McDowell coming to you from a hotel room as he is on the road. Let's start though with a team that is now putting together some success. Sam, I'll give you first shot at this since you're coming from the furthest away. What do we think of where the Kansas City Chiefs sit right now, having now won by 19, 8, and 14 points in their last three games? And, oh, by the way, 15-1. They've only been beaten one time. Are they now the best team in the NFL? Should they be considered the best team in the NFL?
Yeah, I think they are. I think for 14 weeks that the rest of this league viewed the Chiefs as vulnerable this year. And I realize that's unusual to say about a one-loss team, but through the first 14 weeks, 6 of their wins were on the very last snap of the game. You had the 3 game when he kicks, you had the Ravens game, you had the Broncos blocked kick, and you had a walk-off touchdown in overtime. 6 times they won on the last snap of the game. The Raiders game, they won on the second to last snap of the game because there was technically a kneel down after the fumble. So that was 7 of their first 14 wins. And I think the rest of the league thought this is the year you can get the Chiefs. And look, that's still the case. But I think right now the rest of the league was watching that game yesterday thinking, the Chiefs look like they're back. And it took them a long time to figure it out. I think it's personnel related. I think there's some scheme stuff they're doing differently. But this team is playing its very best football in the last 2 weeks now. And it's not the team that we've been talking about for the first 13, 14 weeks of the season. There's some elements, there's some of the similar critiques that we'll go through, but the primary thing is their offense is completely different. And I think people will say it looks like it's a different group. Well, it is a different group. That's why the offense looks different. And like I said, I think that because these last 2 weeks, you'd like to have a larger sample size, but the sample size is all we have to go on. And this team just looks much, much tougher than it has at any point in the year.
Jeff, where do you sit? Are they now the top team in the league?
Not for me, but they certainly moved into the top 3. If you would ask me a week ago.
By the way, maybe I should ask that. Where were they? Were they 4?
Oh, they were probably 5th. They were probably 5th for me.
Okay.
I would have put the Lions and the Vikings and the the Bills. And probably the Vikings above them.
Lions, Vikings, Bills, and
the Eagles.
Eagles. Okay.
Yeah. So I think they're better than Detroit right now. I think that the Eagles and the Bills, I still think, are better because the Bills beat them, and I think the Eagles are the most talented team in the NFL. I think that if you look at rosters and the potential for game-breaking dynamic plays, they have the most possibilities for that. But certainly the Chiefs have played better. And to be honest with you, I think that if they were 10-6 right now, they would still be the most dangerous team in the playoffs because of their resume, because of their quarterback, because of their coach. There was no way they were going to be they were going to have a lame defeat in the playoffs. To beat this team, you were going to have to play your best. So I don't think that's changed at all. I think the personnel is different, but I think the play calling is different and the scheming is different. I think the two biggest reasons I think they're playing at a high level right now, they're protecting the quarterback and they're getting turnovers. And I think that is the way they played against Pittsburgh is the way they'll have to play to win a championship. The question is when you start seeing better offenses who can do more things and don't. Baltimore and Buffalo are, I think, first and third in the league in fewest giveaways. You know, they are two of the highest scoring offenses in the league. Like they're going to have to score points to win. So that's why yesterday was a really good sign for them.
Yeah, I think, for me, they are. I will put them at number one because of pedigree, because they're two-time defending champions, because they know how to win, because the record does matter. It is of note they still have the seventh best point differential, right? That is of note. Like the three of the four teams in the NFC North all have a better point differential. But I think you hit on it, Jeff. I think the way they're playing now and against the caliber of opponent that they're doing it against, being the Pittsburgh Steelers and Houston Texans that are two teams, and the circumstances that they had to do it. Now, you can make a case that, listen, when we get to the playoffs, they're going to get 6 or 7 days. There are going to be no short weeks. And maybe part of what makes them look so good is Andy Reid is better at handling the adverse situations. Yeah. And the playoffs are more business as usual when it comes to what you have to prep. And maybe that will level the playing field. Maybe this just heightens and accentuates the value of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. And when we come back to a normal, rest week, then that's not going to be as pronounced as it was. I would absolutely – I would subscribe to that theory that Andy Reid is better at doing that. And so this does accentuate what he does. But I like what Sam said. I think whether they've found something or this has been the plan all along, that they actually can do things to try to get better, use the regular season as a mode to get better. And now they're like, okay, it's time to zero in on what we know will work. I mean, the rhythm short passing game was there. There were slant passes. There were bubble screens. There were quick hitters. They've really – They flipped that switch and made it look pretty easy. They dominated the Pittsburgh Steelers offense without Chris Jones, right? Who I think we all would agree is the single most important person that they have on defense. And what it is he brings to the table, they did not lack. That is pass rush. We know he's not there to stuff the run. I don't know how this wasn't a tour de force unless you just say, look, they're not going to play on 4 days. They're not going to play 3 games in 11 days in the playoffs. And so it'll look different when everybody gets full rest. I think they have to be the top team at this point.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't argue against that. I think there's an argument for it. And I do think what's weird, I was looking at the stats after the game and they gave up 10 points, but the key was the turnovers. I was stunned that Pittsburgh ran for 200 yards in that game. I was stunned that Pittsburgh converted 8 of 16 third downs. The Chiefs were 3 of 10 on third down, and they converted a couple fourth downs. But I was just like, did I miss this stuff happening? Because it felt like they were just getting run over.
Well, they had like 170 yards of offense, or 181 in the first half. But this is what turnovers does. And the Chiefs haven't been able to create turnovers all year. But this is the very value of turnovers it is – the safety hatch when all else is going wrong. We just haven't seen the Chiefs do it this year. But, yeah, the Steelers had plenty of offensive success in this game, much more than the 10 points showed. I mean, they converted 6, 3rd, and 8 or longer in this game. And that's the second straight week that this defense has been very susceptible to 3rd and long plays.
Yeah, listen, would you bet them? Like, should they be the betting favorite, Sam? You like the numbers in the math. I would never take one team against the field. But if you had to take one, and I don't think you would either, I think you would take the field against the Chiefs.
Absolutely, yeah.
If there's one team that you had to say, forget about the return on investment, you have to pick one team to win the championship, and one team only. Which one would you pick right now?
Yeah, the Chiefs, but a lot of that is because of the route. Like, they're going to get a bye. They're the only team in the NFL right now that's guaranteed not to have to play in the first round, and that alone should make the answer the Chiefs.
Jeff, if you had to pick one team right now, clearly it's not the Chiefs if you don't have them number one. Which team is it?
I'd probably take the Eagles, but that's just that's really based off the entirety of the season, the sample size that I'm looking at. I think Buffalo is going to be a tough. I think Buffalo can come in here and win. I think Baltimore can come in here and win. I feel like, and I say it because of their offensive capabilities.
And you're right. You're right. Those two teams definitely can come into Arrowhead.
Yeah. And so what I don't know and what I'm watching, I think the Chiefs have to control the game to win. I don't think that they can play the way they played against Pittsburgh or even the Texans. They punted 5 times yesterday. I think.
So you're not buying the defense. That's what that says to me, because they punted it at work. They did control each of those games.
Yeah. I'm not buying the defense in the same. Plus 10 in turnover ratio was amazing, and if they do that, they are going to win a championship. I just look at the way those other teams are playing offensively, and I think they're just better offensively.
Yeah, I think there is something to be said. Josh Allen is the ultimate. Russell Wilson's steadied the quarterback position for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but they need to play a plus day. I mean,
Soren, when it was 3rd and 2 and he dropped the football on the first possession, this game's over.
Well,
3rd and 2 when you drop the football.
when the ball gets knocked up in the air and right into TJ Watt's hands, or I can't remember who it was, and they drop it. I mean, I think you heard that basically Mike Tomlin had told the announcing crew, we're going to have to take it away. Like when we get a shot, we have to take it away. We can't drop it. We're going to have to play plus football to win this game. Yeah. But that also, to me, says that Mike Tomlin looked at this game and said, that team's better. We're going to have to steal possessions because they are better, which I do think is a statement. I think Sam was president of the Steelers aren't as good as their record club for sure all along. That has been validated, I think, to this point. But I think they're still, I do think that they're a tough team. I mean, I think they are a quality, legitimate playoff team. And I think Russell Wilson has steadied the quarterback position. But somebody's going to have to come in and beat the Chiefs. And that means on 4th and 2, go for it, the way Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills did. Like, you're not going to come in and just play Marty ball, which is a little bit of what the Steelers wanted to do. Let's be +3 and, let's play the field position game. You're going to have to get the ball, hold it, keep it from them, and score points. And that's the recipe that's been, teams haven't been able to do here for quite some time on the Chiefs.
Yeah, but to Jeff's point about the Ravens and Bills, like if the Ravens or Bills had the number 1 seed, and I still thought the caliber of all these teams was the same as I think it now, I would tell you the Ravens or Bills were the team I picked to go to the Super Bowl. Like, the fact that the Chiefs don't have to play that second round or that first round game is significant, and their second round game, I mean, it's lining up to the possibility they'd face the Texans or Steelers again in the second round. Like, they're not going to have to face the Ravens or the Bills in the second round either. You only got to play one of those teams instead of – to me, there's 3 teams that have separated themselves in the AFC, and it's the Chiefs, Ravens, or Bills. 2 of those teams are going to have to play 2 games. One of those teams is only going to have to play one of those games, get to the Super Bowl. And to me, that's why you have to pick the Chiefs in the AFC, not because you think even if you don't think they're the best team. The route is just so considerably more favorable when you've got the number 1 seed. And to me, it should outweigh everything else.
Well, and here's what I say too to that is, I think one, the Chargers could end up being the 5 seed. The way the Steelers are trending, they could end up being the 7 seed if they lose to the Bengals and the Chargers and the Broncos went out. That could change the whole trajectory of the playoffs. But the bigger thing is, I feel like when we've watched the Chiefs lose in the AFC Championship game in Arrowhead, that was to the Patriots and that was to the Bengals. I think both those teams came in knowing they had to play at a very high level. And I think what happened with Buffalo and Baltimore last year was a lot of hubris about, hey, they got to come to us to play. We got them on the road. Watch what happens when they don't have that advantage anymore. And I think both those teams learned a lot about doesn't matter where you play the Chiefs, you better come ready to play because they will beat you if you're not playing at your highest level. So I think that mindset is going to be a part of what those teams have coming in there, whichever one it is.
All right, we'll dive a little bit deeper into the offense. First of all, we'll dive a little bit deeper into David Starnes Allstate Insurance. David Starnes Allstate Insurance, serving the Kansas City area and all throughout the Midwest. With David Starnes Allstate, it's not just about fender benders. Beyond traditional safeguards, enjoy perks like roadside assistance for unexpected breakdowns, transportation expense coverage when your car is in the shop, auto replacement protection to keep you on the road in style, and much more. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized, full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems? They've been making them disappear in KC since 1994. Don't risk accidents and liability in your parking lot. Get your lot restriped today. A brightly striped lot will cut down on accidents and keep your lot as safe as possible. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. All right, is the offense fixed? Sam, you want to weigh in on this one? Have they found their niche and their groove and what's going to work for them now that they've found Hollywood Brown back, put him back into the mix?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the offense is taking a massive step forward. Look, there was a lot of talk going into this game about Patrick Mahomes having the chance to play on Christmas again. He mentioned it last summer. He was like, that was the first game I looked at, is I get to play on Christmas again. It didn't go well. But I thought what we saw yesterday had nothing to do with this revenge thing of getting the chance to play on Christmas again, because that implies it's a one-off. And I thought what we saw yesterday has staying power. And I'll preface this by saying, I'm not looking for the opportunity to relitigate this Hollywood Brown thing. And we go through a lot of topics on this show every week. None of us are 100% correct on these topics that we go through. I do think Hollywood Brown has made a significant difference in the way this offense is played. I mean, I mentioned his yards per route run last week. He's 2.47 this week. He was 3 last week. There's only one Chiefs wide receiver all year that has had at least 2 games of having 2.47 yards per route run, and it's Hollywood Brown, and he's only had 2 games to do it. That's how different he is than the other guys the Chiefs have put out there offensively this year. Obviously, I think Worthy has taken a step forward. It's back-to-back games where he set career high in yardage. It's, to me, a very good development for the Chiefs, that it's not a one-off deep ball that he had against the Chargers to set a career high in yardage. It's the product of a lot of yards after catch, that he's running different routes. But to give you one play example that neither of those guys even caught the football on, to show you the difference that they make, Justin Watson's 49-yard bomb, which is the first downfield pass that Justin Watson has caught all year.
Right, you Justin Watson hater, you.
All year.
He prefaced it all year.
All year. He's caught one
Can't even give him credit.
He's caught one downfield pass all year. And I can tell you, when you go back and watch that on film, the reason he caught that downfield pass is because Hollywood Brown's on the field and Xavier Worthy's on the field. And I asked him about that.
What are we doing here?
I knew there's going to be doubt. I knew there's going to be doubt about this, so I'm prepared for the stat to back this up. I asked Justin Watson, I said, how many times have you run that route in that play? And he said, over my 3 years with the Chiefs, I bet I've run that route on that specific play call at least 50 times. And I said, how many times have you caught a pass on that? And he said 0. That was the first one. And when you go back and watch it, it's because Minkah Fitzpatrick sees this combination of, Worthy and Hollywood Brown also running deep routes over the center of the field. And he takes Xavier Worthy and says, and to his defense, if Justin Watson is really right about this and he's never caught a pass on that route, why would that guy be the guy who you defend on that play? You should go towards Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown. But Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown are actually the first and second read on that play. It goes to Justin Watson because it's the Steelers' first and second read on that play too. And Justin Watson winds up stacking his cornerback and getting a step because there's absolutely no safety help on that play, which typically there is safety help on that play. But you've got different wide receivers to worry about. I know that's anecdotal, but there's stats too. I think their offense is completely different with these two guys on the field together.
I love how Sam just
Go ahead,
killed
Jeff.
like Justin Watson's ability. Like the only reason he got open was because they didn't have another guy to cover him.
It's a lot of evidence, a lot of routes. He's run that route a lot of times.
But I think what it does, I mean, this comes back to, and I'll quote our buddy Eric Eager's piece that he brought it because I thought it was a great piece back in 2019, where he talked about a lot of times offensive success in the postseason is based upon your third receiver because that's where you get down to where the coverage guy starts to be a problem. And I think to Sam's point, I think this is kind of an illustration of that. And I think he even heard Ian Eagle talk about it on the broadcast that I can't remember which one of the receivers he had been talking to, or if it was Matt Nagy or Andy or who it was, but that now with Hollywood Brown, everybody fits back into their role. Right, Justin, and the role of Justin Watson is to not beat the second best coverage guy or the third best coverage guy. Now you're asking him to beat the fourth best coverage guy, right? And I think that's what Justin Watson is. Like Justin Watson is a fine player to be at the bottom of your receiving crew. He's a really good fourth or fifth receiver, right? But he is not the guy that you want to be the stretch the field guy. He is not the guy. You know, we even saw it later on a play that the Steelers did make where they brought Xavier Worthy on a drag route and Minkah Fitzpatrick made the tackle. It wasn't his guy. He was clearly in a high safety role, but he was a heat-seeking missile going where Xavier Worthy was. The mesh stuff had picked off the corner, and here comes Fitzpatrick flying up to make the tackle because they were focused on Xavier Worthy. And here's one of their best defenders coming up, and he makes the play, and the Chiefs ended up having to punt. They didn't convert on that third down. And I think that's what Sam's saying here is when you have Xavier Worthy, when you have Hollywood Brown, Minkah Fitzpatrick, your best cover guys are over there, and you get to work against the bottom guy. Like, wouldn't you rather work against the worst corner? And the Chiefs know that. They know who they want to pick on. They want to pick on the worst defensive back out there, and Justin Watson can beat the worst defensive back out there. He can't beat the second best defensive back out there, which is what they were having to do early on.
But it all comes back to protection. Like Sam, the key thing Sam said was he was the third option on the play. They weren't getting the third option a few weeks ago based on the protection they were having. And so
that's fair.
That's true. That's true. I agree with that too. That's true.
So I think that it's easy to cherry pick and say now it's all working great because these receivers are different. In reality, they're protecting better.
I think they all are true, right? I don't think it's but don't you think they had problems with both in the past? They couldn't protect and they couldn't get guys open?
I think if you look at the routes they're running, and first so people don't think I'm crapping on the Chiefs. They're playing very good offensively. They're playing the best they've played all year offensively, but they're throwing the football very quickly. They've decided we want to get the ball out fast. We want to do run after the catch. We're not taking. I think that was the only shot play they took in that game, if I'm correct, to Justin Watson. And when they ran it, if you look at the protection, Travis Kelce came around the backside of the formation to pick up Cam Sutton, who was blitzing on the play. So I think they put three guys out in that pattern. I didn't see the film of it, but it was like a very conservative shot play. And so to hit that, they're thinking protection first now, which I think is very smart. I think that they are understanding that the way I look at their offense right now, they've turned the short passing game into their running game. And we'll get into their run game later, but they're saying, let's get the ball to Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy and Travis and all these guys within 4 or 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. We'll control the offense that way. And, we'll see if they can break a big play. And it's working. I just think what's going to happen is defenses are going to adjust to that. And we're going to have to see the run game become a bigger part of this or the deep passing game become a bigger part of this. But I think it's working right now. And they deserve credit because it's effective.
Yeah, a couple things on that. First of all, I agree with everything Jeff said. I just would add to it that the reason they're allowed to do this and play this short passing game is because they have an extra receiver who's able to get open earlier that they didn't have before. And I think these two things go hand in hand. Patrick Mahomes passed the ball, according to Next Gen Stats, the second quickest he's ever released the ball. And so I think they have done better with protection, but I think the protection looks a lot better when your scheme looks a lot better to defend the fact that your protection has been a weakness for most of the year. The second thing, and Jeff mentioned it, but I think it needs to be underscored a lot more, is this Chiefs offense we've only seen for 2 weeks. Defenses have not had a lot of film. The Steelers didn't have a lot of film to go on to say, what's this Chiefs offense going to be with Hollywood Brown? When the Chiefs play again in 24, 25 days, whatever it might be, those teams are going to have more film to look on. And like Hollywood Brown has only run, I think, 40-some routes this year. They're going to be digesting those 41 routes a lot more than what the Chiefs had going into the Texans game when he'd run 0 and going into this last week when he'd only run 19. Like, they're going to see some adjustments, and it's going to be interesting to see if the Chiefs are just so much different that the adjustments don't matter, or what adjustments they're able to make back.
But that's all they're going to have.
Yes.
Because now they've locked up the number 1. So I don't think Hollywood Brown's going to play against the
no.
And so that there's probably more in reserve for what they have not shown everything that they have. That there is stuff that they've been working on, since OTAs and minicamps that they haven't gotten to yet. And that may be a problem. It may mean that they haven't set up some of the things that they want to come back to. That may be a deficiency in what they want to do. But yeah, I listen. This is the best offense. We all agree this. Whatever they are, this is their best version of their offense, right? That we have seen all year.
That's the way they have to play.
That is definitely a big part of it. Xavier Worthy's role in it. Is Xavier Worthy good enough in your mind, Jeff, to be kind of the go-to guy? He was the feature piece again in this game, at least by quantity of targets when it comes to the wide receivers. As he rounded into form, and you're now willing to say, okay, he should lead this team in targets. Travis Kelce had 2 more targets than Xavier Worthy did, but he was 8 of 9, 8 catches on 9 targets. Travis Kelce was 8 for 11.
I'm not certain of that just yet. I think he's played tremendously over the last couple of weeks. I think he's gotten a lot better. I don't see him being comparable to what Rashee Rice was doing in the second half of last season, because he's not the same type of receiver. And so, again, I think, like Sam, the element of surprise is big here. I think they're using him in different ways. If you really look at what they're doing with him, it's a lot of almost like screen pass type stuff, or like stuff behind the line of scrimmage, things where he's not really down the field making plays, I think. And you saw the way Fitzpatrick started to play him, that people pick up on that stuff. So I trust Rashee Rice more in that kind of a role, because he was a bigger guy and he was proven to be a guy who could break tackles and do things with the ball in his hand. I just don't know if Xavier Worthy can be that consistent against better defenses if teams are saying we got to take number 1 away. I trust Travis Kelce and D-Hop, who had 2 catches in this game for 7 yards. I don't know if I want to put that on Xavier Worthy just yet.
Okay, Sam, where do you sit?
Yeah, I sit in the same way. I mean, I think the Chiefs are going to have to go much more matchup related, and they're going to have to use, the first quarter or first couple drives to try and analyze the way teams are defending Xavier Worthy, and that's going to have to dictate his target share in games. I mean, I still think the biggest question about the Chiefs passing offense, and there's a lot fewer questions than there were 2 weeks ago, but the main question I still have is, who do you go to on 3rd and 4? Who do you go to on 3rd and 5? Because for the longest time, for the entirety of the Patrick Mahomes tenure, that answer has been Travis Kelce. And yesterday, even you look at their 3rd downs, and I went through this last night, the players who caught 3rd down passes were Samaje Perine, Justin Watson, Xavier Worthy, DeAndre Hopkins, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Xavier Worthy again, like 6 different times they complete passes, and it's to 5 different receivers. I still don't know that they have that answer. And look, they may not eventually have to have that answer. They may just say, this is the guy they're leaving open on this play, or this is they are taking, to Jeff's point, maybe somebody, they do have a face of safety, a Kyle Hamilton type that decides this is the guy I'm playing the robber defense against for the entirety of this game, and they can adjust who that 3rd down answer is. But usually the Chiefs have gone into playoff games knowing Travis Kelce is the answer on 3rd down. I'm just not entirely sure yet who their crunch time 3rd down answer is going to be.
Does that make them tougher, Jeff? That neither does the opposition, that it could be anybody?
I don't think so. I think Sam's right. I think Mahomes, that's who he's looking for in those situations. I think Hopkins is becoming more of that player. But when it comes down to it, when they're playing the Bills or the Ravens or the Eagles or the Lions, the Vikings in the Super Bowl, the Packers, one of those teams, like they're not going to have the margin for error they have against teams like the Steelers or Texans, who are not as good offensively, or deficient. Like they're going to have to be able to know, all right, they're going to take this away, that away, and this guy's got to make a play. It's not so much about, I think the last 2 weeks has been about plays. It hadn't been about players. I think the playoffs has been about players. And so, yeah, I think it's going to have to be Travis Kelce or Hopkins, one of those guys in those moments. I mean, those other guys are going to make contributions, But if this team's winning a championship, that's been proven over time. Who is Mahomes always looked for in those big moments in the playoff games? He wasn't looking for Demarcus Robinson or Byron Pringle or Noah Gray. He was looking for Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. And so I think, that Sam's right. Is that? If Kelce's not that person, Hopkins not that person, who's that person going to be?
Yeah, listen, they've done a pretty good job of mixing and matching, and I'll say this: I do think it's a little bit like they can go to anybody, and I think that makes them a little bit dangerous. That you don't know who to take away. I think it was easier to say, okay, it's all going to focus around on Travis Kelce, and I don't think that's necessarily the case anymore. And I think that makes them. I think teams are trying to kind of figure out, well, who is it we want to go take away? And I think that works to their advantage. It works to your advantage when it comes to your game day eats to go see our friends at Whataburger. Whataburger is proud to sponsor the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. Now at all your KC Whataburger locations, and for a limited time only, get your Whata Wings tossed in any of your favorite flavors, including the new Nashville Hot. Or get your hands on fire you can handle with the all-new, perfectly spicy Bacon Blaze Jalapeno Double. Get a kick this football season with these great new limited-time Whataburger favorites. Stop by any of the Kansas City Whataburger locations today. Whataburger's open 24 hours a day.
Unlock a premium dispensary experience at Key Cannabis. Visit any one of our 12 Key Cannabis locations across Missouri for a huge selection of cannabis products and expert recommendations from Missouri's friendliest bud tenders. Quick service, convenient online ordering, drive-through pickup, and a fantastic loyalty program. Plus, Key Cannabis offers discounts for veterans, med patients, cannabis industry professionals, seniors, first responders, and students. Visit us in KC North, South KC, and Belton. Open 7 days a week, or shop online at keykannabis.com. Key Cannabis, open for premium cannabis experiences.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the offensive line. Jeff, you mentioned it a little bit earlier. Joe Thuney. Are we done talking about who should be at left tackle and Joe Thuney has solidified that spot, or is DJ Humphries still plan A?
I think you go with the hot hand. And I give Joe Thuney a ton of credit for what he's been able to do in that role. I was skeptical of it. But I've been saying all year, this 5-game stretch, it doesn't really matter. It's now a 4-game stretch because the Denver game doesn't matter, was going to be a very revealing period for this team. And they were going against some of the best pass rushing teams in the league. And they have given up, 1 sack in, the last 3 games. And so that, I give Thuney a ton of credit for that. I don't know why you would risk trying DJ Humphries in that situation now, unless you feel like, okay, we got to get the run game going and he's better at left guard. But I would trust him all day long in that situation, because really him being there, it forces the Chiefs to be more realistic about what they ask of that left tackle spot. And they are helping more. They're more sound with protections. Mahomes knows the ball's got to come out quick. The play calling doesn't put him in bad situations. And so in a weird way, they've kind of stumbled into something that, much like last year, we can't play the way we want to play, so Rashee Rice is going to be our go-to guy. Now we can't block the way we want to block. Joe Thuney's our go-to guy.
Yeah. Where do you sit at left tackle, Sam?
I agree with Jeff that I give Joe Thuney a ton of credit. I think he's been okay, and the Chiefs would have killed for having left tackle.
Yeah, but the question isn't does he grade a 10 on a 10-point scale? The question is, should he be the left tackle? Okay, maybe 3 rungs up the ladder from anything else.
Well, that's what I said. I think the Chiefs would have killed to have okay at left tackle. To me, it's too late for DJ Humphries. I mean, because if you go into, let's say, playoff game planning on having DJ Humphries as your left tackle, the only evidence you have of this guy so far is that he can't finish a game, because it's been over a year since he finished an NFL game at this point. And you go in with a game plan of how to protect and what the calls are going to be. And if that whole game plan is wrecked in a first quarter injury, second quarter injury, even a fourth quarter injury, you don't want to be adjusting on the fly against a team like the Bills, against a team like the Ravens, and how you're going to protect. And so I go with the guy who I think has been okay. But I will point out, it's not just Jeff's right. They've given up 1 sack in 3 games. The game against the Browns is the most pressure that Patrick Mahomes has ever been in his career. He didn't get sacked. That was a lot of quarterback doing that. Yeah. The other reason for this protection is the stuff that we've already talked about earlier. They are schematically deciding to get rid of the ball quicker, and they have a wide receiver now that helps allow them to get rid of the ball more quickly. It's not just this terrific offensive line play, because Mike Caliendo has had a couple of really rough games in the middle. And so it's not without its drawbacks, putting Joe Thuney out to left tackle. You do not have this wall to run behind in the interior offensive line that you had for much of the start of the season.
But what would you rather have?
I'd rather have the best pass protection,
Yeah.
because I think that's what you're going to have to do in the playoffs. And the best pass protection, I think, is putting Joe Thuney at left tackle. And it's fewer question marks, right? I mean, even though Mike Caliendo has struggled, I have no idea what you could expect for DJ Humphries if you roll into the playoffs with him playing left tackle.
By the way, just for some PFF grades, Creed Humphrey, 84. This is pass blocking only 84. Trey Smith, 83.9. Joe Thuney, a 68.5. Jawan Taylor, 42.3. I'll take exception with that. Mike Caliendo, 19.6.
It was a rough day. Taylor surprises me, to your point, Strink, because TJ Watt did not have a single pressure in the game.
I listen again. This is a starting point. Just this is someone's unbiased.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's not nothing. Yeah.
I think though the low end is probably a little bit low on those, and I think we do need to mention Jawan Taylor here, because I think he did a fine job, and I think some of the hold calls.
Does that factor in holds? That's what I was going to ask. The penalties factor into that?
Yeah, I
absolutely.
think that's a failure. Yeah,
huge. Those are huge factors into a game. The fourth down hold was bogus.
Yeah, it like there were some cheap calls. Like the whole narrative that the Chiefs get all the calls. Boy, ask Jawan Taylor's agent if he buys that, because there were some, but he carries in some ways. Listen, he's earned the reputation. Like he draws a lot of penalties legitimately, which when in doubt, give the guy a flag, right? There's like, you kind of earn that reputation that's out there. But I thought he was better than that. But I think this is something that Jeff has talked about, Sam, kind of your last point is, you know, if Joe Thuney makes them call offense to the strengths of the rest of their talent, like to your point, they have a guy, you said they have a guy that they can get the ball out quick to now, meaning Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, they have more guys. If they'll only do that when Joe Thuney's there, because they're like, well, we got a guard playing tackle, so we got to get the ball out, then Joe Thuney should keep playing left tackle. Yeah. If they put DJ Humphries in, and Andy Reid's going to go, well, I got 12 seconds. Well, I'm going to run these ornate patterns 70 yards down the field. Well, then no, don't play him. Like if that gives you false bravado and false confidence, play the scheme that has you, scheming scared, because you're better as a team that way.
Let me ask you guys if you guys would think differently if there were 4 games left in the season and DJ Humphries is healthy next week, because I think I would like to see what DJ Humphries looks like. A lot of my answer is the fact that you cannot have confidence in a guy that the only time you put him out there to protect Patrick Mahomes, he didn't finish the game.
Yeah, I think it's an issue. I think it was a great idea, and had he been healthy and been able to stay out on the field, then you'd feel like, okay, we're rounding into shape. But I think it's a real dilemma. Now they've got some time to practice, and not with pads and not that kind of thing. But I think this is going to be a really interesting. If they win, whatever they do, if they win the championship, whatever they do, they're geniuses. Yeah. If they don't, they're morons. They should have done the other.
Yeah, and to Sam's point, and I said it in the last segment, was I think what you're going to see teams do in the playoffs is that they're going to start playing more coverage, and they're going to start sitting back and say, can you run the football with Caliendo at guard with the same success? And if Pacheco's banged up, we don't know where he's at. We'll talk about that as well. They ran for 60 yards in this game at 3.5 point yards, at 3.5 yards a carry. I mean, it was non-existent. Now, again, I think the short passing game became the run game, which is ironically an old staple of the West Coast offense. But there will be adjustments made to what they're doing, and they're going to have another answer for that moving forward.
Well, I was just going to say, I'll just tear up Soren's rundown and talk about the running game now, because I think
that's where we're going. So
yeah. I do think it's very related. I mean, the Steelers did that to the Chiefs yesterday, to where they said, try and run the football against us, because we think it only takes 4 to stop it now when that's your offensive line. Isaiah Pacheco yesterday, for the stats that Jeff just mentioned, and let me get his exact stats. That was 2 games ago. Let me get his exact numbers here yesterday. Pacheco had 6 carries for 18 yards. Kareem Hunt had 9 for 20. You know how many stacked boxes Isaiah Pacheco faced yesterday in those 6 carries? 0. You know how many Kareem Hunt faced? 2.
Yeah.
I'm sure they were the short yardage plays. Like, the Steelers were basically saying, we don't think you can run the ball anymore with this formation. And like, we all picked this offensive line that they just ran out there. Like, the Chiefs offense has looked as good as it has all season. Statistically, their only game better was the Baltimore Ravens to open the year. This was a full yard per play better than any game since that Ravens game. So I still go with this. I'm just saying it's not without its drawbacks. And part of the drawbacks that we've seen the last 2 weeks is the running game hasn't been nearly as successful.
Yeah, I mean, where's your fear factor on the run game? They did kind of dominate this game against the Steelers. They did not do it with the ground game.
No, and that's look, it's again, I'm trying to preface this so the people listening at home can understand. I'm not crapping on what they did. They played phenomenal offensively. They scored 29 points, but if you really break it down, they got 2 short fields, one on a kick return and one on a fumble recovery. And they're going to have to be able to run the football in the playoffs to create the things that they want to create against the defenses they're going to see. If teams are going to sit back and they're going to start doing this and start playing more coverage, taking away the short stuff, we're going to get back into the 2 high safety days. You get back into you can't throw the football down the field days, and all these smaller receivers like Worthy and Hollywood are going to have to try to get open against more congested zones and against more people on the line of scrimmage trying to bump you and putting hands on you. That's where it's going. And you get around that by being able to gash people in the run game. And that is, I was so impressed by the quality of the win and the overall score. Looking at the stats, I was like, just with the Steelers side of it, that rushing number jumped out at me. And I thought it was just like, did I miss that? But that's a real concern because it's 2 weeks in a row now.
I'll object to the idea that they're going to have to be effective running the ball. They're going to have to call runs. I will say that. But the playoffs are littered with, running attacks that are 22 for 67, that are, 21 for 55. Like, you have to hand the ball off and force the defense to defend it. But I don't know that you have to be effective. There are numerous games littered with Tom Brady as listed as the quarterback where the run game does not put up yards. It put up attempts and makes you defend it, but I don't know that they have to be more effective than this in the run game. I think they do have to continue, and I think because the passing game's working, right? Like I what was wrong with this game plan that they had against the Pittsburgh Steelers if this were a playoff game?
Let me give you one spot in which case I think they have to be effective, because I agree with the larger point that you still got to be effective on short yardage, because this team has struggled when its primary option on short yardage has been having to pass the ball, as they did at the start of 2 years ago. And remember how much we talked about short yards for the first half of last year and all of 2022 is because they realized they couldn't run the ball up the middle and they had to pass the ball. So I think primarily I agree with your point, but I think situationally in that spot, they do need to be effective in the playoffs.
I will concede that point, and I will agree that you are correct. But I will agree that you are correct because of negligence, not because of a lack of ability. Too often, their pass game short yardage is 4 curls at 2 yards. Like, all originality and creativity goes out the window when they throw on short yardage. And so based on what I've seen, where everybody runs and turns around and goes like this and waits for Patrick to throw the ball, yes, I will agree with you. If they would just run their offense, I think that would look different. But they don't. They become incredibly crappy on their route combinations. And, yes, they need to be able to run the football when it comes to short yardage.
I'll give you an example here. I don't know if you watched the Bills-Patriots game last week. It was a dogfight for the Patriots. They won by 10. They pulled away late. They gave Josh Allen a lot of problems.
Bills won by 10.
The Bills won by 10 with their coverage. And they were playing a lot of sticky man coverage and taking things away. And the Bills said, okay, we're going to run the football now. And then James Cook ran for a 60-yard touchdown. And then Ray Davis had a big run. And all of a sudden they were pulling away and controlling the game again. That's what I'm talking about. Like, the greatest offenses, no matter how well you throw the football, teams can say, we're going to take that away and make you do something else, and you have to be able to do it. And so I think that's the point Sam's making too, is that if they're taking away that short stuff, if they're taking away Mahomes' ability to improvise and scramble, they're going to have to run the football. That's what they're going to give you, and they're going to have to do it effectively to win a game.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. All right, let's get into the defensive side of the game. No Chris Jones, no problem in this one. First, we tell you we're brought to you by David Starnes Allstate Insurance. David Starnes Allstate Insurance. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Covering all the important things in your world: home, business, life, and even the fun stuff, as well as your motorcycle, boat, ATV, and you name it. Get with Dave, and he'll get you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations: North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave today. He'll give you peace of mind for the things in your life most important to you. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Jeff, what do you make of the Chiefs holding the Steelers to 10 points with no Chris Jones?
I thought it was really impressive. Again, like, it was so impressive that the numbers that they did give up in the run game and on third down, I did not jump out at me. And so, I give Mike Dana and Karlaftis and the guys who played inside a ton of credit for the way they got after the quarterback. I thought they had a really good coverage scheme in place. It felt like Russell Wilson was holding the football a lot, trying to make plays down the field. And I have to imagine that the Steelers probably came into the game thinking they could actually hit some shot plays because Jones wasn't going to be there. And that didn't happen. They really flustered Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson, I thought 3 weeks ago, might have been a long-term answer, at least the starting quarterback for the Steelers. He may have played his way out of it. And then the last 3 games, with the death knell being what happened against the Chiefs, they had every answer for them. And turning the ball over again was big. Justin Reed's interception was huge. The fumble by McDuffie was huge. And I think those plays, that's how you get blowouts. Not because you've got a great offense, but because you're taking away possessions from the other team, and they did that.
Yeah. How about you, Sam? What was your reaction to seeing them play so well without Chris Jones?
Yeah, I agree with double down on everything Jeff said. I will point out, so the Steelers had 7 carries for 5 yards on that last drive. When I think the Chiefs said, well, we're fine to let you run the clock. So that definitely inflated the running game. They still gave up 145 rushing yards before that. Yeah. So, I mean, Jeff's absolutely right about that point. And Chris Jones is not a solution to being better against the running game. Now, Mike Pennell is, and Mike Pennell was in and out of that game with a hamstring injury. And then for some reason out in coverage.
I don't know what that was.
With the hamstring injury, I was just imagining Mike Pennell's reaction to that call. Yeah. It's like that meme where the guy on the couch is like, Me? I got this guy?
He gave it his best, though, didn't he?
He did. But look, I mean,
a refrigerator running down the field.
running down next to the guy he's supposed to tackle, I cannot change directions. If he runs into me, okay, he's going to go down. But this is it. I'm going in one direction.
Yeah. At one point, he actually, I think, just completely gave up on the play. But look, I mean, they had 5 sacks by 4 different guys. Now, the sacks did not reflect the amount of pressure they got. I mean, they pressured Russell Wilson, I think, on 30% of the snaps. That's a pretty good number. It's not some incredible number. When they did get to him, Russell Wilson, and the reason we've seen the fall off for him over the past few years is, for every reason, he still thinks he can escape pressure, and he just can't. Yeah. And so once you get to him, when you can't bring him down, and look, the Chiefs deserve credit for bringing him down too. But I think we all thought going into this game that not having Chris Jones was going to be a major factor. And because when they did get to him, they were able to get him down. It wasn't this huge factor in the game. There's something that else defensively I thought really popped up, which is the Chiefs took advantage of the fact that Russell Wilson will take chances at a higher rate than he did. And when Russell Wilson trails in games, he suddenly starts to take chances. And he doesn't when he's been really good at protecting leads this year. And I thought the Chiefs getting out to the early lead set the whole game plan in place for their defense to take advantage of the things that Russell Wilson does not do well.
Russell Wilson was pretty effective at times running the ball. He did have 6 carries for 55 yards and a touchdown. So
and when I mentioned those 55 yards earlier, 2 of those on the last drive, 2 of those did come on Russell Wilson scrambles too.
Okay. But I think your point is valid. He's not the escape artist that he used to be. But that's how you game plan.
100%.
If you're the Chiefs, you're like, listen, if we drop extra guys, and what I think they did was say, like, we're not going to give him open guys, and we'll get coverage sacks, and we'll eventually get there. And here's what I would offer up: are they more disciplined? Are they more effective? Like you mentioned, I agree. I wanted to preface that he did run 6 times for 55 yards and a touchdown, so they did not render him, irrelevant. But do they? There are a lot of Chris Jones. Oh, Chris Jones got his hand on him, and then Josh Allen runs for a first down. Oh, Chris Jones was almost there, and then the quarterback runs for a first down. Was there an element of better discipline from the defensive line? That is there? Are they more sound, Jeff, as a defense when they say, okay, we don't have Chris Jones? Are they better because everything's not designed? Well, Chris will beat his guy. Let's try to. Everybody's a blocker for Chris Jones, and we're going to get Chris Jones. And I'm not saying that because they're trying to get sacks for Chris Jones and justify their contract. I'm saying that he is definitively their best pass rusher, and so it makes sense that you would scheme to get him. The Rams always try to get Aaron Donald on the worst damn offensive lineman. Yeah. See Aaron Donald on Cam Irving in that Monday night game where he was there all the time. It's what you do. But are they maybe fundamentally more sound, at least for a moment, when Chris Jones isn't in there, because they just play a little bit more straight up. They protect their coverage a little bit more. They're willing to acknowledge we're not going to be able to do everything we want to do, and they play more sound, defensive football.
Well, that could be part of it. I think there is an element of when you're moving Chris Jones all over the formation to create matchups for him, that someone else may suffer from that. That maybe that's not great for Karlaftis or Michael Dana, whoever is not being where they would ideally want to be. But this game to me was more about the coverage and the rush being in sync. And I don't know what the time was for every sack, but I would imagine that the rush was probably getting home within like 4 seconds or 5 seconds. I don't think it was like a beating the guy in 2 seconds type play and he's on the ground situation. I don't remember that happening. And so I think that's more about, look, when you're playing defense, every defense looks at it the same way. Like, who do we got to take away? And the Chiefs knew once George Pickens was dealt with, maybe Freiermuth could do some stuff, but there was nobody else out there for the Steelers who was going to make a play. Calvin Austin did a couple things, and they threw a ball to Mike Williams. But once they knew that, you saw more gambling, you saw more confidence. They were playing downhill. They were playing less on their heels. And that's what you want. And so I think that does help the pass rush feeling better about, hey, if we really get after it and stick with it, we're going to get home because there's going to be time to make a play versus what the Chiefs have been doing, balls coming out fast. That's really tough on a defense when you're trying to rush and you got 2 seconds. So I think, go ahead, Sam.
Well, I was going to say, based on everything you just said, I think one of the takeaways the Chiefs should have from this game is that on 3rd and long, on obvious passing downs, Chris Jones needs to be inside. Like this experiment of him playing outside for the last 3 years, they are much more effective rushing the passer when Chris Jones is inside, because a lot of their pressures in this game came from the outside without Chris Jones in the middle. And when you kick Chris Jones outside, what you're putting on the field is not as effective. And it's the same Joe Thuney argument for the defense. Do you want Chris Jones and Mike Dana, or do you want, Chris Jones and, like Mike Pinnell or Mike Dana rushing from the inside? And I think you're weaker in both spots when you do that.
Yeah, I think there's an element of like, hey, know your role, do your job, Chris. Like I also think the freelance, and we've heard some things with comments like he picks where he wants to go.
Yeah. He does. Sorry to interrupt here, but I think your very best example is the biggest play of the only Chiefs loss of this year, which was the Josh Allen scramble on 4th and 2. And when you watch it, the Chiefs game plan against Josh Allen, because they always fear his scrambles as much as the arm, is you got to stay in your lane as a rusher. It's the way the Bengals for the longest time defended Patrick Mahomes, is just stay in your lane. If you don't get home, priority one is don't leave your lane. And Chris Jones on that scramble left his lane. And so that's the shining example of the point that you're trying to
make. They got manhandled too.
I listen, I think they need to take a long, hard look at the success they had in this game, because I do think the Chris Jones walking up and down the line, like, I'm going to go against this guy, I'm going to go, and everybody else, like, I find it hard to believe that you're schematically sound when a guy gets tapped over half a second before the ball snaps. Like, figure out your scheme, line the hell up, and do your job. And I think there's a little bit, the happy-go-lucky Chris Jones, like, there needs to be some focused, Chris Jones too.
Yeah. And when you're on the edge, guess what? They go the other way.
Yes.
In the middle, it's harder to escape you.
100%. He should not be on the edge at all. He should be on the inside. And I don't think it's a bad thing to take him off the field to keep him fresh. They just proved that they can get sacks without him. So he doesn't have to play, 90% of the snaps. You can go ahead and rotate him in. Stop justifying the contract and do what's best for the team overall. All right. The takeaways, though, you touched on this earlier, Jeff. You think it continues?
I think that they can keep getting turnovers and they stick with this offense, that their chances of winning a championship are pretty high. To me, it was this. They want to play this way defensively. They want to create this kind of disruption, but I think offensively they've stumbled into this in a weird way with the protection and moving guys around and having to throw the ball faster and Hollywood coming back. There's so many moving parts to this, but yeah, I think they can continue it because they're pretty disciplined and they're pretty good at understanding what they have to do to win games when it comes down to it. So I think they can keep it going.
Pressure the quarterback and the turnovers will follow. That's what I think. As long as they can keep getting after the quarterback, they can keep creating the takeaways. Do you agree, Sam?
Yeah, and there's been some luck involved in this too, because there was some bad luck involved from the majority of the season. Jesse Newell, a colleague of mine, tweeted this out during the game. Like, the Chiefs were 30th in fumble recovery percentage going into this game. Like, a lot of that is just plain luck, the bounce of the ball after the ball goes on the ground. But I feel like we're missing a little bit of the obvious with this first turnover, which is George Pickens, a guy who a lot of fans were clamoring for the Chiefs to draft, cost the Steelers an interception because he looked at that play and said, well, I'm not going to get open on this play, so why would I even continue running the route? And it cost the Steelers. I think one of the takeaways that Chiefs fans should have from this game is that Sky Moore's 0 catches for 0 yards is more valuable to them than George Pickens would be on this team, because you can't play when a guy is giving up on routes. And the amount of routes that George Pickens gave up on in this game was a major reason that the offense was struggling. I have never in person watched one wide receiver give up on so many plays as George Pickens gave up on yesterday.
And to that point, sir, I know this game was 16-10 at the end of the third quarter. It was very much a winnable game for the Pittsburgh. That's what I'm saying. Players, not plays. Your big-time players have to make plays, and Sam is right. That guy just tapped out.
I know of one team that he was not on their board.
Several teams, yeah, absolutely. Several.
But before the draft, I said Pickens, and they're like, not on our board. I said, really? Not even late, not touching him, no chance. Not going to give it up, not going to play, not going to play hard, going to be a pain in the ass. Watch his career. If we're wrong, we're wrong, but we came to a conclusion real quick. We're not touching that guy. And I think you see it. And I think he has a cancer, and I think he's a problem for the
and I think those guys. I think it's
one of those guys.
Yeah, with Deontay Johnson too. Yeah.
Yes, I think it's why. The Steelers have a history of those guys. They had Antonio Brown before that, and. Look, I wrote after they cut Kadarius Toney that should be one of their takeaways from this is you establish this culture for a reason. Every time you draft a player, we hear how much they love football, but it's for a reason. You have prioritized this, and that has to continue to be the priority. And so, like I said, Sky Moore is a bust, a second-round bust, but I credit that the reason that they went with him over George Pickens had a lot to do with the exact performance we saw from George Pickens yesterday.
And I think, to be clear, they did not take him over George Pickens. They could have taken George Pickens.
They traded back
down.
Yes.
And in the 3 picks in between where they traded down, George Pickens went. So they could have had George Pickens.
And now Thornton, who is back on their practice squad anyway, was another one of those. Yeah.
Yes. It was quite a crew that was available there at that point. Let's wrap with this. Travis Kelce, third tight end ever with 1,000 receptions. He went over that mark. Did it in 175 games. That's 28 fewer than Jason Witten, who was the fastest in 203 games to do it. 77 touchdowns. That's the most in Chiefs history. He passes Tony Gonzalez, dunks the ball. Not a very good dunk, by the way, but dunks the ball over the goal post in honor of Tony Gonzalez. What does it mean, Jeff, these records?
He couldn't get up higher. That money he's making off the field was weighing him down.
Or maybe the Pop-Tarts that are being made for him.
I thought it would have been hilarious if the ref put the flag back in his pocket. He's, you know what? We're not calling that a dunk.
Yeah, finger roll. Look, he's had a phenomenal career. Obviously, one of the greatest players ever, not just tight ends, but the greatest players. We could have this debate about who's the greatest tight end ever. I think it's pretty interesting that the Chiefs have had two of these guys playing in their franchise. But, you look at the way his career has evolved and where he's come and how he's performed over especially the last 7 years with Mahomes at quarterback, 6-7 years. It's been amazing to watch. And I don't know how much longer he'll play. And he's obviously in the downhill of his career. He's going to end up probably I think I said he was going to be under 900 yards receiving this year. So I feel pretty good about my bold prediction in that regard, but it doesn't mean he still doesn't have impact. He still matters. He's still hard to deal with for a lot of teams, and he's still where people start with game planning. So hats off to him. I mean, he's first ballot Hall of Famer for a reason.
Yeah, he's gone from being a top 5 wide receiver to being a top 5 tight end. Now that's what he is. He's still a top 5 tight end and productive. In addition, Sam, his 80 touchdowns, because he has 2 rushing and 1 fumble recovery for a touchdown. That's second all time behind only Priest Holmes, 83. He moved up on that list as well. He's third most career yards after catch. This is a stat that's only been around since I think it was 1992. But 5,711 yards after catch. He passed Terrell Owens. Only Marshall Faulk and Larry Centers have more than him, and the fourth most first downs by a tight end was 646. And again, with way less games played, more than a season's less games played than the guys that are in front of him. He's pretty close to moving up. He could, if he plays another year, he could probably be second on just about all the lists except for maybe catches. I think he'd probably still be third on catches. He's got a ways to go on that, but it's the numbers are pretty staggering.
Yeah, I mean, he had a very worrisome start to the season that I think rightfully so. People were concerned, like, what is Travis Kelce going to give the Chiefs this year? And he still gives them 97 catches this year. And I pointed this out a lot in the offseason that the best
7 straight, by the way, over 90 catches. And that's like tied for a record or second only to somebody. I'll look that up.
I had pointed out a lot during the offseason that the best age 34 or older tight end season in NFL history was what Travis Kelce did last year. And I think that had set my expectations for this year. The yardage came in about where I expected. I didn't expect he'd need 97 catches to get there, which is both, a positive and a negative because he's not as nearly as effective after the catch as what he once was. That's where we've seen, the fall off with Travis Kelce. But everything Jeff said's right. This guy's had a terrific career. What I look to now, like he was the first player I thought of whenever the Chiefs got a bye because of the impact it had for him last year when he got a week off. And so for all the stuff he's done in the past, I looked forward on Travis Kelce after the game and thought, I wonder what Travis Kelce will see in the playoffs because it sure made a difference a year ago.
By the way, 7 consecutive 90-plus catch seasons is the NFL record. Torrey Holt and Antonio Brown had 6. Marvin Harrison, Demaryius Thomas, and Keenan Allen.
So for any position, yeah. For
any position, he is tops. So he has done some amazing things, certainly in his career. It's remarkable. It's a remarkable career. And to Jeff's point, Tony Gonzalez and Travis Kelce, right? Like, both of those, 2 of the greatest tight ends, 2 of the 4 best at worst, right? When we say Gronk,
3.
Gronk's not up there numbers wise,
yeah.
But would you say 3? Gronk, Tony Gonzalez, and Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
That's it. Everyone Chiefs uniform. Pretty impressive, just say the least. Speaking of impressive, we're always brought to you here on the Red, Gold, and Bold by our friends at David Starnes Allstate Insurance. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331, covering you and your family with all your insurance needs. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's best for more than 30 years. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. One contractor, all things parking lot, our friends at Whataburger. Can't stress enough, love the Whataburger box. If you're looking for a tailgate option, remember they're open 24 hours at Whataburger, 24 hours a day. And our friends at Key Cannabis. Key Cannabis offers discounts for veterans, med patients, cannabis industry professionals, seniors, first responders, and students. Open 7 days a week. You can shop online at keycannabis.com. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network and NFL.com, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.